You're listening to the Esoterix Podcast, hosted by Joe Figueres and Fioraliz Franco.
And welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We have Peggy with us today.
Hello.
Hi, Peggy. We're going to talk some astrology today.
Yes. Yes, we
are. Today, lovely followers, what is it? What do they say in Bridgerton? Hello, gentle reader. Dear gentle reader. Today, we're going to talk about the fucked up politics that's going on around us. So let's get to it.
Yeah, we're recording this on 11/11, and just so you know, there's like a group witchcraft spell going on today at 11/11 on 11/11 to try to curse Trump. So that's happening.
I'm down for that. I'm not even a witch, and I'm like, yes,
let's do it.
But didn't that happen before? Don't you remember there was a bunch of witches that got together and nothing ever happened?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that last time.
Yeah.
All right. So, I guess, how do we start?
So just to give everybody a perspective, right? Okay. We're recording this, one, because I think it's a good conversation to have, and because other people need to hear that it's not just like it happened, move on, because that's happening. You and I are sitting on the West Coast, and even for us and sitting in blue states, our experience is still, not going to be the best. But Peggy is in Iowa, which turned out to be a very red state this time around. And so before we started recording, Peggy was kind of telling us just kind of the atmosphere in that area right now.
Yeah, I'm in a red city, even in a red state. We have red state house. I mean, it's red all around, and the feeling is just, I mean, it's like palpable here. And when I hear from people, like on the West Coast or even on places in the East Coast, and hear, about their experiences and, oh, we'll band together, whatever. There are, fuck Biden signs everywhere. There are Confederate flags everywhere with, guns superimposed on the Confederate flags, even everywhere. Like the feeling of, hatred. It's like you see it every time you drive around, and you just cannot escape it at all. And I was so hoping that we could start to move away from that, but
yeah, right.
It's in my face all the time, and it really makes it hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Has it been like that for a while? Has it been like that since like 2016?
Yes, it has. And I think it has gotten worse, honestly, with like the flags and the signs and the, that are up all the time. Not even just like, of course, around election time, everybody's going to have signs, but it is all the time. And it's people wearing hats, and it's people wearing t-shirts, and, and it's not even just like, I like Trump because he's nice or he has good policies. It's like, fuck you.
No.
That's the feeling. And it's really difficult to live in that feeling all the time. So it makes it hard for me to feel like I can speak my mind, because you don't know how people are going to take it. So, yeah.
And I would imagine that it would be harder for you, because kind of like the calling right now is like, don't accept it, right? So if you, for instance, see a friend who is black or brown or, some other, identifying person, and they're being harassed, you're going to be less inclined to step in through no fault of your own. It doesn't make you a bad person, right? But also you're like, am I going to get shot, killed, whatever, if I step in? And that makes it really, really hard. And then that causes that other person to feel really alone.
Right. Luckily, I have not seen that yet. Like that's, I guess, my fear. And I hope I'm just scared for no reason. Like I really, really am. I'm just worried that this is going to embolden people more. So luckily I have it, and I would jump in. Like if I saw something, I would jump in. But that's what I'm worried about, that things that are signs and flags and shirts and stuff will come into action, if that makes sense. It'll go from just, wearing it on your shirt to being, this is how I'm going to now outwardly, treat people and interact and threaten people. So really hoping again that I'm scared for no reason, but we'll see how it plays out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you're scared for no reason. Also, like, I experienced it at, I think it was like 10:45 the morning of November 6th, in the doctor's office. I experienced it like probably as boldly as I'd ever experienced it in my entire life. And I grew up in an all-white small town. I've never experienced it like that before. So people are definitely emboldened, very much so. It's okay. It's okay to be openly racist and hate people, scream in their faces. I have stayed off of the socials or scrolled past any interactions that I see of white men screaming down black women, and there's been several, and I'm just like, I can't watch that. I'll embody it, and I can't do it.
I have been blocking people left and right, like just anything, even if it's like a person commenting on someone's account that I follow, something like that, just blocking them. I don't want to see it. I don't want anything to do with it, and that's like the best way that I can deal with it. They're not in my face, right? I don't have to deal with them in my everyday life. So why would I burden myself with looking at or reading what they have to say on an app that doesn't make a difference?
Yeah, I agree. And I told somebody this yesterday. I said, 99% of the negativity and the hatred that I experience is on social media. So just, if I get rid of social media, it's not going to get rid of the hatred and the, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I can control that. Like, why would I expose myself to more than necessary? Because I don't experience it, except for that, douchebag in the doctor's office. I don't experience it on a day-to-day basis in real life.
Yeah. And so I haven't been completely off of social media because I've fallen into the side of hope talk. And so this, on the one end, this can very easily be the denial phase of grief, right? However, there have been astrologers who have been right, prediction after prediction, psychics who have made a lot of predictions over the last 3 years, and these are predictions around a lot of things, right? Weather, other governments, like not just the US based things. And the majority of the ones that I follow, actually all the ones that I personally follow, which I know like our personal biases affect these things. I get that. But all of them have said he's not going to be president. Like, and that they see it in different ways. Some astrologers see it in his chart. They're like, yeah, the way that, he has certain transits that highlight him, around the election time. But overall, it does not show that he will continue to stay in power. Whereas Kamala's chart does show that. It shows, and a lot of the psychics have said they don't see that they didn't see an election like happening, that there was the energy around the election was really weird, just really different, really odd. And then that they just don't see an election happening, but that Kamala would still be president. It's like, okay, I mean, I don't know, but we live in unprecedented times, right? How much shit have we seen over the last 10 years that we're like,
this is new.
I didn't have that on my bingo card, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm seeing that too. And also I'm going to share a couple things about some of the astrology. Peggy's going to share some stuff about the astrology. I'm going to share what I got when I opened up the Akashic Record of the United States of America. But the just to sort of touch on what Fioraliz just said, that I have several psychic friends that are actually in predictive astrology, and they have all said, this is different. he's not going to take office. There is something that's going to happen. And it was weird because I remember how it came up as I was talking to one of my newer friends, Fernando Marone, Fernie, and I said, I don't know. I'm just not freaked out by this. I just don't feel like this is something that's going to come to fruition. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, I have another friend that said that. And then he had some predictions too. And he's had some crazy predictions that have come true. So, you know, I don't make predictions. I open up the Akashic Record and I say, what the fuck? But I have never had the Akashic Records tell me something that wasn't on point with the energy. So I think that in that alone, we can have some hope. Plus also, once we get into talking about the current astrology, it's going to give people a little bit of perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I was talking to my friend Robin, this was a couple weeks ago, and I was just kind of trying to bring her peace because she's a Black woman and she's got mixed children. And her family moved from Texas to California about 2 years ago because it just like, you know, the stuff that you're dealing with in Iowa, Peggy, it's the same in Texas, you know, just the blatant racism, the aggravated racists that just feel like they're entitled to, you know, all that stuff. So anyway, we're talking, so I'm just trying to give her peace. And I'm like, you know, my thing is that I don't understand if we're entering into this phase of Pluto and Aquarius, and Pluto and Aquarius is supposed to be this new era. It's supposed to be innovation and the collective and what's
giving
good
a shit about each other.
Yes, what's good for you is what's good for me and all that. I just don't see how Trump as president is congruent with the age of Pluto and Aquarius. How, like, those two things.
We're going to talk about how that comes together.
It feels like it doesn't match, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of what I was telling her as a way to try to give her, like, I just don't see how this would work together. And this is coming no matter what. So that's one thing I would like to talk about. And then for anybody that isn't aware, the last times we had Pluto and Aquarius, just to give you some perspective, the American Revolution took place during the last phase of Pluto and Aquarius, the French Revolution, and the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And then if you want to go back even further than that, the Renaissance was also during a Pluto and Aquarius season.
It's Uranus, man. You know, and of course, Aquarius also is like co-ruled, right, in certain, you know, ideologies by Saturn too. Saturn is like there's lessons, there are lessons to be learned, you know. And then of course also we're still at that mother trucking 29 degrees
of Capricorn.
Go to hell, go away. Go away. And that is not a fun degree. So we have some astro stuff that we all want to talk about, just to sort of put things into perspective.
Yeah.
All right. So first things first, the Taurus full moon is conjunct Uranus. Isn't it like 1 degree away from it?
I think so.
I haven't looked at the aspects.
Yes. It's like 1 degree away.
Yeah.
Which means it's right fucking next to it. Okay. And then, of course, Uranus is the planet of revolution and awakening. All right. So let's talk about change and awakening first things first. Okay. So first things first, there is a grounding energy within this full moon in Taurus that supports feeling calm and secure among the chaos. And, you know, y'all might be going, calm and secure? That's absolutely impossible. But because in the light of recent events, it feels like, no, I don't feel calm and secure. But also, how many of us out there have a feeling that there's more to the story to be revealed? That's what that Taurus energy, I think, is really sort of supporting and saying, you feel that? There's more to the story. This isn't the end of a hope for a Harris presidency. I do not believe. All right. Now, other than believing in a billionaire populated secret Illuminati society, right? Other than that, I do believe in that. I know Fioraliz does not believe in that. Right? So I'm always like, I will be vindicated one day. But typically, I don't jive with conspiracy theories.
Right.
They are for those people with unaddressed trauma. That's really what they are. Okay?
Well, it's confirmation bias a lot of the times, really,
Yes.
right? It's just you're just looking for the things that confirm the things you already believe. That's all.
I don't believe that this is a conspiracy. This is a deep knowing coming to us on our natural intuitive capabilities, because a lot of people are like, something's not right, right?
Yep.
You're talking about the numbers.
Yep.
The numbers aren't numbering.
Mm-mm.
So while I think social media is a toxic shit show, it did come up when I opened up the record of the United States, when I asked, what is it that we need to know about this election? Okay. So what I did was, if you know me, you know that I will channel information and then I will pull a card to validate that.
Yeah.
Because it's a piece of paper, right? You can't make this up. So the card that came out is the Gemini card with the message of cross-pollination. Okay. And it's telling us that we need to gather and share information. Because bits of truth will float in on gossip. So look for the bigger truths and small wisdoms on social media, sound bites and everything. So that pulled TikTok into it. And I'm like, yeah. So even though some of these people might seem crazy, look for the truth in these messages, and there you will see a common thread. So, and then based on my own personal development work and helping others through theirs, this is my belief that this whole thing that we're experiencing right now is a master level 29-degree mother trucking lesson for the universe. It's a lesson for the collective in this crazy ascension lifetime. Because remember, we are in an ascension lifetime. We're not just here embodied as humans for no reason during this time. Hell no, we're here for a very specific reason. So what we do next is going to move us through this. We're either going to be empowered and intentional, or we're going to be disempowered and oppressed, and it's all going to be at the mercy of those who would strip us of our power simply to enrich their own. That's all it is.
Right.
It's a power thing. All right. So all that said, as hard as change is to feel, the energy under this full moon comes from the Uranus aspect of it, which is hovering, like I said, just 1 degree away. And it's known as the planet of change and the planet of awakening, right? So how many apathetic people, and I'm asking this for the listeners, you're out there and hearing this, how many apathetic people in your lives do you know who said, oh, shit just got real, it might be time to actually join the fight and do something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Uranus is going to bring that awakening into our lives. And sometimes it's just disguised in the form of change and upheaval. Right. So that's, y'all want to jump in on that? Because I also want to talk about Saturn direct for just a second.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I told you the last reading I had with my friend Grace a couple of weeks ago, we did very briefly kind of touch on this, and I could tell she was feeling like no, it was looking like he was going to win, or at least, the current state we're in. But one of the things that I had said to her is like that, just like the first time around, it wasn't the president we wanted, but it was the president the country deserved, because people weren't paying attention, because people weren't involved enough, because people didn't get out to vote, people didn't care enough. And so it happened. And then we saw all the repercussions of somebody that wasn't qualified to be president. We saw the mishandling of COVID, among many other things, and just like the constant news cycle every single day. It was like, what did this idiot do today? And then, in 2020 was the referendum on him. He didn't win the popular vote the first time, didn't win the popular vote the second time, lost altogether that second time. And so you're telling me that the most unpopular president, who never won the popular vote the first 2 times he ran, all of the sudden won every single swing state? Come on. Like, there's no way. And especially when you look at the momentum leading up to Kamala Harris's, she had 90 days to run a campaign, and she ran a near perfect campaign. She didn't have a fucking October surprise. She didn't have James Comey, coming in to throw a wrench on her on the process. And her rallies were packed with people. And
she had an extraordinary number of Republicans from his past administration. Liz fucking Cheney, the most Republican in the Republican world. An extraordinary amount of Republicans saying, don't vote for this prick.
Right. And so all of that, plus the states, the swing states that allegedly went red, but yet down the ballot they still went blue. Like, how
That
does that
doesn't make sense.
It
That
really
doesn't make sense.
doesn't.
It
Like,
doesn't
it's
make
not.
sense.
Yeah, it just, again, it just doesn't match up. And okay, and so this is where I'm going to err into the side of conspiracies. But here's the thing:
Dip your toe, girl. Dip your toe.
and I'm not gonna. And I've said this before. If you listen to this, is a very, very early on episode in which I've said there are some conspiracies that, you know, they are true. There are true conspiracies out there. There's Watergate, there's MK Ultra, there's Operation Paperclip. Like, these were true government conspiracies, or in the case of Watergate, that was obviously just a political group. But it always eventually comes to light, because if you've ever worked on a group project, you know that there's always a person that drops the ball. There's a person that didn't get paid. There's a person that got screwed over, or maybe their conscience kicked in. I don't know. But anyway, the whole point of it is that conspiracies don't stay conspiracies long term, because there's always something, like there's always a hole somewhere, and the truth will always find a way out. At least that's my personal belief. Okay.
Yes.
So that said, we wait for hopefully some truth to be revealed, some truth to come out. We're talking about, yes, okay, first of all, it doesn't make sense that he suddenly got all the swing states. No sense at all, especially looking at, you know, the past 2 elections and how he did in each of those areas. And then we're talking about sharing data and like between the gossip, and that there's going to be pieces of truth in there. When you see a video on any social media, or I would recommend on TikTok, you look at the comments, and the comments are in there. It's just comment after comment about a person, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and they're saying, my vote didn't get counted. I checked my vote. It says it's not counted. Like, all these people. So that's to say, one, either the votes haven't finished counting, or there's something wrong. One of the theories out there is that some of the ballot machines were connected to Starlink internet. And then, for those of you who don't know, Starlink is owned by Elon Musk.
Fuck him.
And he very, very clearly has a lot to gain from a Trump presidency.
He spent so much, what wasn't it, like 45 million a month or something ridiculous? And
then he was bribing people to, you know, to give him their information for that $1 million lottery thing or whatever that he had going on. Like, how is that legal? So there's that. And then there's already, I already know, there's some people who are going to refute the idea that ballot machines can't be connected to the internet. But if you just do a very quick Google search, you will find that they found at least 30 ballot machines hooked up to the internet back in 2020. So It's not to say it's impossible, and it's not to say that it hasn't happened before. So all I'm saying is keep an open mind. So there's that. There's also that Trump was saying, I don't need your votes. We don't need to vote anymore. We have all the votes in the world.
Secret coming,
and then the secret thing. We have a secret, and we'll tell you after the election. Blah blah blah. We have a secret. So there's that. There's also I think he's a Project 2025 guy who said that the revolution will be bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Yep, I saw that today.
So what is that? It's like, what is that supposed to mean? What? I'm sorry. Yeah,
they're goddamn crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
Can I just tie in too that, you know, you're talking earlier when you said that the truth will be revealed. That's really appropriate right now, because Saturn's going to go direct, right? And since Saturn is our master teacher of karma, and it's direct under this full moon, I think it's the same day. Lesson over. Now it's time to move through. It's time to experience the results of those lessons. And when the lesson is over, it's like, okay, what are you going to do? So it's a little bit of a light at the end of a tunnel. And it said, when the Lord of Karma stations direct, we receive our karmic rewards. Rewards can also be get your shit fucked up. It can be Elon Musk in cuffs.
It could be finding out. It's the finding out phase.
Yes, I like that, right? Because look, Saturn's like, find out, ensues. What do you say? What do you have to bring into all this, Peggy? What astro magic pieces do you have to add?
Well, first of all, just from what Fioraliz was saying, I feel like I'm in such a different well looking out. I'm in like the well of disillusionment right now. So, you know, when so many people around me voted for Trump, it makes it, you know,
Yeah.
for me, it's like, okay, I see it. And I also, there's this whole dynamic as well, where like the far left, like I was always a Bernie person. That was just me. But some Bernie people have split off and then somehow gotten on the MAGA train, which I don't understand either. So I've been reading about that too, because I was shocked by the results, like you all were. I was
Yeah.
shocked.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, in my mind, I see what you're saying. And of course, there's a part of me that's like, wow, wouldn't that be great if that was true? But yeah, I'm just kind of in a well of disillusionment right now. So I don't even know what to believe, honestly, anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I do know that the astrology of now is so, I mean, it's like the unexplainable. It's Pluto. It's, you know, the unexpected. And then really what I want to get into is another player in this, and that's Mars. Because really, so I'm going to go like behind the scenes on the Esoterix Podcast a minute for listeners,
Yeah.
because before this season started, Fioraliz and Joe sent out this calendar, you know, with like the season, and here's what everybody's going to talk about on what dates and whatever. And mine's always easy because it's like September astrology, you know, or October astrology. So it's always pretty easy for me to figure out. But then I looked at this one and I was like, oh, this one's like December through February. We're just doing winter astrology. So I was kind of like, how am I going to do that? I was a little bit intimidated, you know, at first, because usually I zoom into each month, you know, but I really had to take a broader view. And that worked out actually really well because it forced me to look more big picture at a bigger cycle. And really kind of what I'm seeing as some big players are these retrograde planets, which for those that don't know a lot about astrology necessarily, that's when they appear to be moving backwards. So retrograde planets are really playing into all of this dynamic. And really, I think one of the big players right now also is Mars. Mars is going to go retrograde, or it's going to appear like it's moving backwards in the sky on December 6th. And it doesn't start moving forward again until the end of February. And, you know, Mars is this planet of action. And it tells us, like, go out and take what you want and set your aims on what you want, you know, like no holds barred, take no prisoners. That is our Mars energy. And it wants to prove itself. You know, it wants what it wants. And this is that go action. So really on December 6th, all of that forward action that we want to take is going to just be like cock blocked, kind of, for a better way to phrase that. It's like, nope, it's going to go inside. Like, you have to pause and rethink some things. And like, what could piss off Mars more than that, right? Having to just stop its action. So
slow down.
Yeah. So on December 6th, we're really entering this time that could feel really frustrating to us. So as I was researching more about this Mars retrograde cycle that we're going to be starting, I found an article written by my favorite astrologer, which is Stephen Forrest. And he was talking about Mars retrograde and mentioned that every time just before Mars goes retrograde, it makes a trine with the sun. That's just part of its cycle. So that's like the ultimate go energy right before this slow down Mars retrograde. And I looked, sure enough, November 27th, we will be having a Mars Sun trine happening. So I put this in a chart, and to make that even more fiery, we have Mars in Leo, which will be trying the Sun in Sagittarius. So like, you cannot have more fire in this combination that we will be experiencing. So Stephen Forrest explained this kind of as a time where we have this huge rush of energy. You know, like, we're ready. You're like full of piss and vinegar and like ready to go, like ultimate confidence, right? And then it's like, bam, like Mars retrograde, like the ultimate downer, ultimate frustration. So that is going to be playing into all of this winter astrology, December, January, and February. We have things going on with that. So how I was trying to think of a metaphor for this, because this is going to affect us personally and how we personally feel. And also as a society, it's both. So as I'm describing what this energy could be like, kind of think of it both ways. But I really equate how this is going to possibly feel like a home improvement project. And that sounds really weird, but let me explain this. Let's say this is what leading up to like this Sun and Mars trine is going to feel like with that ultimate go energy. This is going to feel like when you get this idea to like, oh my God, I'm going to remodel the bathroom. I can totally do this myself. All we're going to do is like put in a new vanity and like a different countertop, maybe put in like a different light fixture, a little paint tile, whatever. Like I can totally do this. Right. And I don't know if you all have done that before, but like have you all done this?
Yes.
Fioraliz may have. I don't know.
I do this all the time, but yes.
Okay, so this, you can tell me if this pattern, I have also done this quite a few times. So you can tell me if this is kind of runs true for you as well. But it's like this exciting time before the retrograde is going to feel like when you go to the home improvement store, like it's a Friday and you're like, I'm just going to get all this shit done over the weekend. It's going to be amazing. Come Monday, it's going to be like done. I can totally do this. So it's like extreme confidence time, like hell of a lot of confidence, very much overestimation of ourselves, like to the extreme, especially when we're having the Sun in Sagittarius and Mars in Leo, like very much overestimating ourselves at the end of November. And then it's like, boom, December 6th, Mars retrograde. And that's like the Monday morning after the weekend renovation. It's like when you wake up and your house is totally trash, everything is like, you couldn't even, there's just shit everywhere. There's dust everywhere. There's paint everywhere.
You pulled the vanity and you found that there was mold behind there.
I was going to say asbestos.
Yes.
You find asbestos.
Absolutely. Yes. And like your knees are broken. It's like you have to go to work and you have paint in your hair and you like cannot get it out. And you're just like, fuck this. It's like ultimate frustration. That is what this energy is going to be like, if that makes sense. And that does sound bad, right? I mean, like that sounds bad, but there is a silver lining here, because what happens in this bathroom renovation metaphor is that it's like you realize what your actual skills were. It's like your ultimate reality check. It's like what you're saying. You find the asbestos or you find the mold behind the thing. It's like, well, shit, I can't do this all by myself, right? Like I have to get help. Or then you're like, oh my God, I don't have the right saw for the tile. So why don't I just paint it? It's like, it's very frustrating, but it also makes you more realistic. And then at that point, you're much more ready to actually get the project done when it's time to, you know what I mean? It's like, maybe we need to do things in a different way. Maybe we need to focus in more. Maybe we need to get help on this project, like a plumber or
call a
whatever.
professional.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is really going to be our testing our patience time. So that could come out. So you can think about those kinds of feelings in ourselves and also as a society here at the end of November and beginning of December when Mars goes retrograde. So that
ties in really. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
That ties in really beautifully with the whole, concept of this is a lesson, and lessons aren't just one and done, right? There are phases to those lessons, beautiful phases. And also we will be in Pluto and Aquarius at that time.
Yes.
So is this a good time to get into that, or do you still have more that you wanted to say about that?
We are actually going to hit on Pluto again. There is more coming for us from Mars. And then I think, once I go through this, we can overlay it also on top of what's going to be going on with the election and things like that. And it's really interesting, the timing. I had said that Mars is going to be in Leo when it goes retrograde, but in early January, it's actually going to move into Cancer. So there's going to be a really different energy, and Mars is really going to get into its feelings, like big time. So, it's going to be putting on that Cancer costume, which is fluent in emotions. And it's like the volume of its feelings are going to get turned up to high. So big feelings here with Mars in early January. And, you can imagine how for us, for society, that could come out in good ways. or it could come out in like emotional explosion with Mars.
Yep.
Because Mars it's not the planet of vulnerability, right? But Cancer is. So it's like, how are those two going to interact with each other?
It sounds steamy.
Yeah, we've got fire and water. It's like, it could be a good thing, right? We could have like, it's like Mars could get a little pat on the back from Cancer saying like, it's okay to find the courage to be vulnerable, right? Or, it could be this crab encouraging Mars to like scratch people's eyes out. Like it could go either way for us.
Yeah.
So, I will say one period of time that might be like especially tricky to maneuver during this time could be January 11th through around January 20th, because at that time, retrograde Mars is going to be opposed to the sun. And a lot of times that is the most kind of intense period of a Mars retrograde. And this will be like a tug of war, it'll have tension between the two, the core of who we are and this really, really frustrated retrograde Mars that's now in emotional Cancer.
Whenever I think of Mars in Cancer, it's like Mars says, okay, it's time to take the action. And Cancer says, but you're only going to take the actions on the things that you really care about.
Yeah. It adds the feeling to Mars. And instead of just go and don't think, it's like Cancer is the sign that wants to mother. It wants to think of other people too. And Mars is absolutely not that way generally. So it's a lot of confliction. And like you said, steamy. So that'll be interesting. And then there is one date in particular, which I'm interested to see how this date plays out. And that's January 13th, because Mars will be sitting right next to that January full moon as well. So they will be conjunct in Cancer on January 13th, in addition to retrograde Mars being opposed to the sun. So all of that is happening. And then it's like January 13th, boom, now it's sitting on the full moon as well. So that will be like extra, extra, extra feelings on that day.
Whew.
So I actually put that day on my calendar. And I don't usually do things like that. Just because I want to be aware of general energies, but I don't like put it on my calendar and, make it such a rigid thing in that way to keep track of. I did, and not to be like scared of it or anything, but just to keep my wits about me, to remind me like, hey, if you feel huge feelings today, then you just need to wait. You cannot do anything like unhinged, because in a few days you might feel better and the volume might be turned down a little bit. And then you can actually think,
I do that too. I put dates and notes in my calendar about crazy days.
Yeah.
So it's a good reminder.
That's actually the first time I've ever done that. And I think it's honestly just with everything going on too. I'm like, I need a reminder for myself, because I could see I'm feeling things right now that I've never felt before. So I need to kind of watch myself and protect my energy in that way.
Do you feel like your intuition has spiked?
Sometimes I do. And sometimes right now I'm feeling like completely disconnected. It kind of goes back and forth, honestly. I feel like when I actually I took all these notes, thank goodness, before, like a couple weeks ago. And at that time I felt like it was all flowing to me, and it was not hard. It just all kind of easily kind of connected some dots here. So I'm glad I did it when I did. So yeah, do you all, how do you feel right now?
Well, I'm curious if you were part of the people that woke up on that early morning after the election. So that would have been the 7th at like 3 in the morning. Were you part of the people that got woken up at like 3 or 4 in the morning? Because there's like just thousands of people, of women specifically, that were woken up at that time and just like hit with like some kind of like energy, and just felt like, some people call it like that they felt like a timeline shift. Some people just felt like energy like zooming through their body. Just everybody describes it a little bit differently, but it's an odd, like, universal thing. My sister felt it, my daughter felt it. I was up until 2:30 in the morning because we were driving to Vegas and we got a flat tire, so we didn't make it home until 2:30 in the morning. So I wasn't one of those people personally, but I'm just kind of asking.
I was awake on and off through the night, so I never really looked at the clock. I will say energetically,
Okay.
there is something that I have been feeling since that, I would say the day of the election, almost,
Mhm.
I mean, like almost nausea, like all the time.
Yeah.
And I know that it's like, okay, it's anxiety or whatever, but it feels more than that. Like it
Right.
feels up in my head. It feels like I'm hotter than normal, like my cheeks are red, like something, and it's not, I'm not sick. So it's like something is feeling very heavy, and not just, I mean, not just fear, it's something else. And I've been working on
Mhm.
trying to figure out what the hell that is. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's the collective. It's your awakening. It's your gut. It's your intuition. It's also you picking up on other people's stuff.
Mhm.
Like a mass awakening, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
It had to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's a part of that whole Akashic record of the United States of America.
The thing with the revolutions, right? And to think of, if you think of the energy of a revolution, you can't have a revolution if you don't have a common oppressor to
Right.
revolt against.
Right. That's
yeah,
exactly
yes.
that's exactly what it is. Like this, the move into. I know that you had mentioned this before, that it doesn't seem fair, or it doesn't seem right, or it doesn't seem that that's how Pluto and Aquarius.
Would go.
I
Mhm.
even said to like sort of like, what did we do to deserve this,
Right.
right? What is this, right? But it's Pluto and Aquarius, and this concept is taken from Astral Butterfly.
Uh-huh.
But basically, it's like, as when we move into any sort of Pluto, doesn't matter if it's in Capricorn or Aquarius, that's going to be
Mhm.
different. But there's 3 stages in Pluto's sort of transformation process. There's
Uh-huh.
disempowerment, awareness, and transformation. Those are the 3 stages. And of course, right now we're in disempowerment, but the second stage is awareness. And so in order to get to the second stage, you first must go through the first stage. So
Mhm.
everybody's feeling very disempowered right now, but that feeling of awareness is going to hit, because this isn't a 20-year thing. This
No.
is, the rebellion starts relatively soon. And if I'm not mistaken, I was listening to an astrologer yesterday who said 2027 is going to be a fucking shit show. So this is quick. This is not something that it's going to take us 10 years to get to. No,
Mhm.
we're right off the bat. And then getting through that, we hit the third stage, which is transformation through action. So, and this is about a reclamation of our power. So this is, it's an ascension lifetime. This shit is normal in an ascension lifetime.
It's like you can't make up where the plant, where all the energies are astrologically right now, because it's just so
Mhm.
lining up with how we
No,
all feel and what's
you
going
can't make
on.
it up.
And like with retrograde Mars
Yeah.
in December and January, Mars is moving, as it's moving retrograde, it's moving more into opposition with Pluto. Actually, that was another thing that I thought
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And the first week of January is when that opposition is going to be the closest. The smallest orb will be the first week of January.
Uh-huh.
So it's like Mars is moving even more into this, backwards with its frustration, into this opposition with Pluto. So I think you're exactly right. Yes, we're moving into Aquarius. Did I want to think, oh, this is fantastic, because I feel like I know what this means,
Right.
But it's almost
Yeah.
like I forget that, like, Pluto is not our friend necessarily. I mean, it's going to take us to our knees first. Pluto
Yep.
is the wild card. It's going to take us to our knees in, like, what you described, that first phase. And then
Yep.
it's like we have to work out of that disempowerment to pull out the power that we will feel. And in Aquarius, that should be equality, and that should
Yes.
should be giving more power to
Duality.
the people. Yeah. So I mean, the tides are always turning here for Pluto. So
Mhm.
I just think this all falls together in such an incredible way.
I agree. I mean, from the Capricorn aspect of who, Fioraliz actually did an episode on Pluto and introduced me to the concept, and it just clicked something in me, and I'm like, this is something, and it's just, I've been obsessed with it ever since. So I read all the books. I've got a couple Stephen Forrest books on Pluto. Like I just absorb everything. And so the thing that has been so predominant for me in this is when I pulled those cards and I said, this is a lesson. This is not a shit outcome. We're not being fucked by the universe. This is a legitimate lesson, because astrology overall, which is sort of the basis of this, of my tetralogy readings, astrology is the when our astrological natal chart placements are our soul's intention for growth and healing in this lifetime. And that is personal, but it's also, or it's individual, but it's also collective. And that's, as much as it sucks, this is simply just another lesson that we need to figure out how to get through.
Right.
Yeah, it's all part of it, right? It's all part of the process, and it's going to feel like shit. It will. We have Pluto involved. It's going to feel like shit. And I think I was naive to think that it wouldn't, honestly. Like that's kind of on me to go into this with such doe eyes. I mean, I was naive. This is going to be hard. And I feel like, just to give everybody like some light, I think at the end, to at least dissipate all this pressure that we're feeling, because I don't know about you, but I feel like this energy I was describing, I feel like inner pressure, even like physical inner pressure that I have felt since election day.
Yep.
But I think some of this part, like when I look at what's happening astrologically, I think that will start to lift at the end of January, because Mars will start to move out of the opposition with Pluto. So there's one thing. But also at this point, from December to the end of January, we've had Uranus and Jupiter both retrograde as well. So that's really that inward looking, reflective, and that's kind of pressure too. Like, don't act. It's all inward. But by the end of January, Uranus goes direct. So back into its forward motion. The 4th of February, Jupiter goes direct. So back in its forward march. So that's kind of priming us to start moving again. And then by February 23rd, Mars will go direct. So it's going to go forward moving. That pent up energy from being retrograde is going to start to be released at that point. And so hopefully that'll start to feel a lot better, but again, that's something we have to pay attention to within ourselves, because you can think about energy being released or pressure being released. It can feel good, or it can, we can let it kind of explode out. So that's something we're going to have to kind of watch within ourselves and within society and see what happens. But hopefully we'll be ready to take action at that point with like a more realistic, transformed perspective. So there's maybe like the bright light at the end of the tunnel a little bit.
Yeah.
With Pluto, it's not about the reaching the end. It's about moving toward something rather than arriving at like this fixed destination. So it's always going to continue to be fluid, because we get to one point where it's like, oh, look, we have equality, to put on my rose-colored glasses. Oh, look, there's equality. And then here comes something else. Pluto says, hold on now. You got to look a little bit deeper.
Look at this one. Yeah.
It's just this constant ongoing transformation where our actions are aligned and then realigned, with our surroundings. So, I mean, as much as we, like you said, we look at this and we're like, Pluto, oh my God, because I'm a Capricorn, right? So I'm like, thank God, I'm so ready to be done with Pluto and Capricorn. But it's like, Aquarius isn't going to be no fucking ride either. I'm just glad I'm not a. I'm glad I'm a cardinal sign.
Yeah, not
like,
a fixer.
But then something else came through. My Leo is a moon, and I'm like, mother.
Yeah.
Damn it. So there's lots of cool things going on.
Yeah.
All in a not cool time.
Right.
Do you have anything else about weren't you going to talk about Chiron a little bit?
Yes. So I was like, okay, I obviously have to like overlap this over dates with what we have going on or coming up and see what, like, how does this play out? And again, I was like, you cannot make this shit up. You just cannot. So on the day that Mars enters Cancer in retrograde is January 6th. So, I mean,
shut up.
That is also going to be the day that this year, or, this coming January, when our electoral votes will be certified again. So January 6th, Mars enters Cancer in retrograde. And then we have that time between January 11th and January 20th, and that's kind of fluid in there, because it's just when Mars will be opposing the sun. But of course, January 20th is Inauguration Day. And then we have that really energetic day, January 13th, where Mars is going to be conjunct the full moon in Cancer. So those are some things just to watch for. And I'm like, I don't know, with Mars retrograde, where it's inward energy, maybe this will just be something we all feel inwardly, rather than something that plays out, in the public or in society. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. But yeah, one other really crazy astrological coincidence, and I got this from the Astro Twins, who are great. So if you don't follow them too, because they're so good and interesting. But on Independence Day, so on July 4th, 1776, Chiron, which is the wounded healer, was at 20 degrees Aries. And, it's kind of like, is this a comet? Is this a minor planet? They're having a hard time categorizing it, but Chiron has a 50-year orbit. But guess where Chiron sat exactly on election day? It was 20 degrees Aries again on election day. So I cast both those charts on a biwheel, Independence Day and election day. And it's like the two Chirons are like holding hands in the chart. They're like right on top of each other. So it's like astrologically, this is a moment of wounds and a need to heal those wounds with Chiron, hitting the Chiron on Independence Day. And with all this stuff we have going on with Pluto, it is just like, this is a time of wounds and healing those wounds. Like that is coming across so clearly. So just so interesting.
Yeah.
And I didn't even get into the numerology, but I mean, just to briefly touch on it, we are currently in an universal 8-year, a year of empowerment and disempowerment. So of course, we're at that point right now where we're being disempowered, right? But we're moving into a 9 universal year next year, which is the year of change and transformation. So change and transformation is going to happen, whether it's internal, external, but it's a collective energy. And so depending on what personal year you're in, it's going to impact you specific to your personal year. So for instance, we'll be in an 8 universal year. I'll be in an 8 personal year of empowerment, in a 9 personal year of change and transformation. Fioraliz, you'll be in a 5 personal year of freedom and discipline, and it's kind of a break for you. It should be really fun for you, but it's going to all involve change and transformation. So Peggy, I don't know your personal year.
I don't either. I will have to find out, because now I want to know. So
I did want to mention, though, to adding on to these dates, I had mentioned to you guys off the air about the void course moon. And for anybody who isn't familiar with the void course moon, it's just that whatever is on track will experience some kind of delays or frustrations. So there are certain things that are recommended that you do not do. It's consider it like a retrograde of the moon, I would say, is kind of the best way I could explain it. It's not actually what's happening, but it just goes off course. Okay.
What's the date of that?
So let me tell you, it happens all the time. It happens like throughout the month. And so we did experience one on December 6th. It started at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then it ended December 7th at 4:49 a.m.
That was last year?
This was no, just earlier.
You mean November?
Oh, sorry. November. It was on November. It actually went November 5th. It started a void course, and then it went back into a void course on November 7th. Okay. So yeah, we did have an election during a void course moon. Here are some things that you should not do during a void of course moon. Start a new job. Make purchases. Start legal proceedings against someone. Go on a first date. Get engaged or married. Have elective surgery. Open a business. Host a social party or a social affair. So these are just some examples of things to not do, because most likely you do these things on a void course moon and they're not going to turn out the way that you expected them to. That's usually what happens.
So don't vote on a void of course.
And yet there we were. And there we were.
Right? Don't
voting.
hold an election. Like, who is The jackass in the sky that said, "This is the astrology."
Yeah.
Right? Oh,
right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like almost unbelievable.
Yeah, really. Like all the things that added up, like the whole Pluto going back into Aquarius, there's the void course moon.
it's kind of bullshit, but it's also what sort of is the thing that lights me up. It's connecting the dots and seeing the synchronicities and understanding that
Yes.
they're not synchronicities. They're actually, it's actually an algorithm in the sky,
Right.
our astro rhythm, and it's fascinating. And when you learn about it and you learn how it all works, it really is cool to step outside of it, even though it might be creating conflict in your own life, but to step outside of it and go, oh, this is why that's happening.
Mhm.
It's just a really cool thing, connecting the
Yeah.
dots.
Right.
And that's why I'm
Right.
grateful that like this was December, January, February astrology, because that forced me to step out. And then it reminds you there are larger cycles at play here. And so even though I am so caught up in today and so caught up in, what's going on right now, it's like the wheels are always turning. And I think that helps you remember the wheels are always turning. And
Right.
right now, maybe you feel like you're on the bottom, but you think about that wheel turning and you'll be back on the top at some point. So that's been actually something that has been good for me to keep in mind right now. So
Right.
this
Right.
was a blessing
Yeah.
for me to do.
The Wheel of Fortune is the tarot card, right?
Yes.
The
Yep.
wheels always turn. Maybe this was meant to redirect you, right? So that now your work expands to the bigger. Because I love this perspective. I would love to hear more of it in the coming episodes.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So that is all I have for this winter astrology, and it will be fascinating. And when next time I come back, we will know how some of this is played out. So that will be, we can do some reflection and see like, okay, what actually transpired here, and how did all the energy play out?
Yeah.
We won't be back until February 3rd.
There we go. We'll be back after the shit show's over.
Yeah, so most of this will have played out by then, and Mars will almost be direct at that point. So
okay, all of this happened. This is all while the United States is having its own Pluto return. It's just that's not a coincidence, right? Like that this country is experiencing a Pluto return, which historically for other empires has meant the end of their empire, like the
end
Roman
of the
Empire.
democracy.
Yeah, the end of the democracy. So it's just, I don't know. It's hard. How do you say you don't believe in astrology when it's like, it's patterns, guys. It's really all it comes down to. It's patterns and pattern recognition.
Yep.
Looking back through my notes, this comes from a private message for someone, but I do think that it is pertinent to us as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this person is told they're actually a really talented healer. And so they were told that it's their focus to go in, because this is all about healing the divine feminine. I'm sorry, the divine divinity, not the divine masculine, not the divine feminine. It's the divine empowerment.
Okay.
And that's what the problem is that when you break it down to a super, basic spiritual lesson, it's that when the divine masculine does not believe in their own divinity, as big and patriarchal as they are coming across, it's because they believe that they have to be a certain way in order, they have to oppress in order to be in power, and that's not true, right? So this is like the rise of the divine masculine, and so her job is to sort of go in, and help with that sort of healing. So that was really the only other thing that came out of this that I thought. I mean, there were some other things, but we covered everything with the astrology, really.
Yeah. The only thing that I wanted to add, because I don't want to ever leave anybody on a like, wow, this sucks, energy sucks, bye. Like,
right, right.
I want to talk about kind of what what can you do? What can we do? What can we do meanwhile, right? And I think part of that is planning. One, like we can take the right steps for ourselves, at least to ensure, even if it's just for our like peace of mind, to know that like, hey, I have a passport. So that way if things get, you know, extremely bad where I live, at least I can go somewhere, or I can move around, I can get around. um and sometimes this that's what these lessons are, right? It's taking a good look at like, well, what is my life right now? What are things that I am prioritizing that don't need to be prioritized as much, or I'm giving too much of my energy away to. Another thing too is, and this is what really came up for me personally, was uh I I've been fortunate enough to gather some really badass friends over the last 4 years. You know, I've just been, you know, like very privileged to have met some just amazing people. But getting those people together, and whether it's in person or virtually, and being able to have these conversations and talk to others, so that we know that we're not alone. And even though it may feel like we're isolated in our personal communities, like in the broad scope of things, and in where we're at in our lives, and the people that we talk to, and the people that are there for us and that we can vent to, that we have people that have our back and that
Mhm.
understand what we're going through. And so that's been one thing that came up for me, is just that communal space. And if you don't have it, to form it, make it, like, you know, bring people in, have either like, you know, your virtual Zooms or like your in-person gatherings, and just create a safe space for yourself to share these thoughts and your concerns, and just so you're not feeling so alone and isolated.
I
I
love
think
that. That's
that's
great.
thank you, Fee. Yeah, that's important for you too, Peggy, because of, you know, just being surrounded by all that red, just your mental health alone. You know, I mean, I'm sure you're not the only mom who's worried about your kids.
Oh yeah, I know I'm
You
not.
know,
I
yeah,
know other moms that are as well, and dads. So
yeah,
absolutely.
good. I'm glad that you aren't alone. It just
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
a big heavy feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to validate, you know, what comes to you, Fioraliz, it's that's a big, prominent, consistent message that's been coming out of the records for all of my clients is
Mhm.
finding that community, reaching out, knowing that you're not alone, developing community. People are tired of COVID, and you know, some people are, and but also people are tending to go inward, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not ready to go out, and that's not going to be helpful. So
Right.
it is about getting out and creating community, because Pluto and Aquarius is like giving a shit about the person, the people around you.
Mhm.
So it's all going to start coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that and this is getting more into obviously esoteric stuff, but I told my friend Lucy, I'm like, I want to start a coven. Like, let's do this.
Hmm.
Let's start. Let's start.
Yeah.
And not to like, it doesn't matter whatever work we want to do, but I think but primarily, and this is really born for me out of like our first retreat that we did in Michigan, and gathering that group of women, and it just showed me the power that you can bring out in each other
Yep.
when you gather in a group of women like that, with the set intention of developing your intuition, your psychic abilities, whatever it may be. But when you sit there with that intention and you gather in a group and with nothing else but that intention, it is amazing,
Yeah.
the development that you see in a person.
Yes.
And I want that for other people. So that's on my to do.
That's amazing. And can I just sort of hop on the back of that? That one of the things, one of the reasons this sucks for so many people, you know, the election outcome, is because I don't know about you, but there was like, I'm on the precipice. I just got a new office and I have all these new things, and I restructured my offerings, and I've decided I'm getting rid of these things and I'm moving forward these things. There really was this amazing energy where I'm like, wow, everything's going to change for me. Everything's changing in such a powerful way. And then this thing dropped. And so when I went into my own personal record and I asked, Spirit, what do I most need to know? What do I most need to? And they're like, nothing changes. You have a very specific purpose. You have dreams, and you're meant to build community. And this is all, of course, individual. It's a soul blueprint, soul path for individual people. But we must move forward despite this and not let this external circumstances, shift our internal dreams and hopes and all of those things, because it's our internal that's actually, when we stay focused on it, when we put our energy on building what we want to build, that's what's going to create external changes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's that's a great message, I think, for everyone. I think something for me that has been hard, and maybe some other people can identify with this, is that especially because I live in a red area, there are a lot of people I love who I know voted for Trump, and I love them, and wrestling between like, how do I deal with that? That has been really difficult, because I'm not going to stop loving these people, and there's part of me that's mad and that just wants to, but I know I can't do that forever. I have to deal with this, and I have to reconcile that within myself. So then it's a question of, do I shut off, that the energy between the two of us, or do I just keep being myself and believing what I believe and acting like I act, and just hope, hey, maybe some of this energy will kind of move their direction, and live by example, I guess. And just, that has been difficult, because I can't just close off everybody that, that I know voted for Trump. Like, and I don't want to, because some of these people I really love. It's so conflicting in myself. So I think for me, part of the growth process, and probably for a lot of people right now, is this internal, not, I want to say battle, but right now it kind of feels like a battle. Like, where is that line between, myself and these people that I still totally love and don't want to cut out of my life, obviously. So that's, I think, part of the internal growth right now as well. Like, how do I show up? That's what I was trying to say in so many words.
I think that's about part of that. I think has to do with boundaries, but I think that's also not betraying yourself. Because I have that. Mine is different, whereas it's not necessarily people that I love, but it's people that I work with. And so obviously I can't be like, I can't scream at them, like I might want to sometimes, but I can, for me, if they happen to bring it up, I have to very calmly make my point clear, as far as like, you're not in an echo chamber right now, and what you are saying is not going to resonate with me, and I'm not going to, echo back to you what you are saying. Like, I'm going to disagree with you. And so if you would like to continue this working relationship, it's best that we either just don't talk about this, don't bring it up around me, because you're not going to like the response that you get from me. And if you want to maintain our working relationship, then this is how it has to be. And but I get it, because it's people that you love. So there's a different level of like, well, I know you and I love you because, I know that you're a good person, like you treat me well, or you love my kids, but at the same time, like, you voted against, their rights. And so morally, it's a difficult thing to grapple with, because we're not fucking disagreeing on sports teams. It's morals, right? And it's things that affect us. Yeah.
Right.
So that's difficult, but I think the one thing that you shouldn't do is like change who you are for the sake of them. If anything, they should learn to respect you, and take a moment. They're not going to do it, but take a moment to empathize with you and your position. I don't know. I do think that those conversations are definitely easier to have in person than they are to have online. So that's why I think that the blocking people on the internet isn't a bad thing. I'm like, or I don't, there's certain people that I don't block, like I just mute. right? So I don't have to see their stuff, because that way I'm not trying to cause conflict in my everyday life, in my in-person right, relationships. But I
Right.
also don't want to like cloud myself or again get angry at a person because of some stupid shit that they posted when I know that they're not a bad
Exactly.
person.
And
Right.
they're putting their beliefs into your experience. So if you're scrolling and you have to see their memes, I saw I unfriended somebody who had a meme where Kamala Harris was getting kicked out of the White House or something like that, right? It
Yeah.
was like AI generated. It was stupid,
Yeah,
but I was like,
right.
no, that was the one and only one that I saw, and I said, that's it. I'm not gonna see that. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a difficult challenge because, while we can say MAGA supporters are blah blah blah, and when it comes down to it, again, we're looking at a spiritual concept of duality. In order for things to change, we have to have two different, sort of experiences, and
Yeah.
they believe just as deeply in their beliefs as we do in ours. And that's difficult because if you can't bridge that with love and family and all that stuff, then you have there's more I can just cut people out, right? Because I don't have I'm already no contact with my family, and my brother is a Trump supporter and I'd mute him. um but it's different for different people, and
Yeah.
I feel for people that are like, I love you, but because I don't necessarily have that in my life, which is okay.
It's a lot of tension inside.
Yeah, I think it's that I love you, but right, because it goes both ways.
It goes
Because
both ways.
they they loved you, but they still didn't vote the way that morally aligns with what you believe. And then same thing with you, like I love you, but I don't respect your politics or whatever.
Yeah.
Peggy, what were you going to say about
Do I
in
remember
response?
right now? I'm
I
like,
know.
what was I going to say, Joe? I do not remember, even though that was like 5 seconds ago.
I think the other thing is like you just have to wait until it comes back and bites them in the ass. Like I have an uncle that voted for Trump. Anyway, so my uncle being an immigrant, like he literally came here from in the 80s, fleeing the civil war in El Salvador, and he became a citizen at some point, and he recently got married to a woman in El Salvador, and he's been in the process to get her papers fixed for like the last 6 months. They're waiting for that. And they're in the middle of all this. And he voted for Trump. And then what was it, like a day after the election, 2 days after maybe, there was that ruling in Texas where the judge declared Biden's current immigration program for spouses to be unconstitutional. So I sent that to my mom and I'm like, look, send this to him. Show him this is what he's getting. And then she starts asking me all these questions. She's like, when and does it affect? I'm like, I don't know. And I don't care. Like he voted for this. This is what he want. Like this is the problem. Like people vote for the things that affect them. Like that are going to affect them. You don't think that it is, but it will. Like if you only voted on grocery store prices or whatever, like what do you think is going to happen when our farm workers get deported, when there's nobody to work the fields? You think that's going to make our groceries cheaper? Absolutely no fucking way. So
Right.
That's what it was. It was people voting for against their own interests and not understanding why. And it's not that, again, not that they're uneducated, but they've been lied to, because all those, that right-wing media, it's all about lies and so it is about farmers, and it is about workers, and it is about all of those things, mass deportations. These people are going to say, oh, fuck, at some point, eventually, this is a Project 2025, and they're going to see, civil servant jobs. Do you remember 2025 talking about all the civil servant jobs that are going to be eliminated?
Yep.
They're going to be gone, and these people are going to be without a job. And so because all of that power is now going to be in the hands of the Trump administration. So I'm not saying that it can't be undone, but there's a lot of policies that Trump implemented that the Biden-Harris administration did not immediately eradicate or undo.
Yeah, like the
right?
tax code. We're still under the Trump tax code
We're
until
still
2025.
under the fucking Trump tax code, and people
So,
don't understand that.
yeah.
So it is going to be like, fuck around. And then now we've entered the era of find out, and
finding
it's going to
out.
be long. And do you mock these people? Do you laugh? I mean, not if they're people that you love, because they're going to be suffering. They're literally going to be suffering
Yeah.
right along with the rest of us, because the only people that benefit from a Trump presidency are billionaires. That's it. People with money, people with stock options and money and corporate. And that's why the corporate was behind them. That's why Musk joined. And Musk is like, I don't want anybody to tell me what to do.
Yes. And I think that's another thing, with all these people in my life that I know that I do love. And some people are really smart that I know, and so I'm not having the experience where like, oh, it's uneducated, it's whatever. Like, there's smart people that I know and that I love. And so, I've been having this struggle with like empathy, like these feelings of, do I say, oh, you're stupid or whatever? Or is it, I'm trying really hard to just be open to empathy and say there is so much manipulation, like just like what you're saying. This is the top 1% fueling this, and that is ultimately why we are so divided and why we are so polarized. So yes, they want us to make the MAGA the enemy, and they want MAGA to make us the enemy. When really we have one common enemy that is just hiding behind all this manipulation. And so I've really, really, really been trying, and I've even been telling like, other people, like, we got to have empathy, leading up to the election. It's just right now, I think it's so raw. It's hard. It's hard right now. It's hard.
You got to take care of yourself.
Astrologically, it's not going to get easier for a little while, it looks like, but I'm like, who do I want to be? That's who I really have to lean into right now. And I want to be that empathetic person that can step back and see the bigger picture, and forgive people. And that is, I think, the struggle right now.
That's the key. That's the key. And that's that message that came through. It's like, focus on you, take care of you, do you, focus on you, because ultimately you have a role in this, and that is to provide possibly empathy when it all goes to hell, and you, even though you want to say told you so, maybe you're going to be at a different place than to be able to say, all right, now let me help you. Let me help you get through this. Let me, I have no idea. None of us have the answers, but there's 1,001 lessons in this, and everybody's going to experience a different one on a different timetable from a different perspective. But ultimately, it's all about Pluto and Aquarius, man. It's about giving a shit about the people around you and understanding. Those billionaires rely on us to do the day to line their pockets. And if they've got people who are pointing fingers at each other, nobody's looking at them. Yeah. Look at Kroger. Kroger had, since COVID, Kroger has made billions and billions of dollars. And the MAGA people will say, you're so dumb. You don't know anything about it. And it's like, oh, I don't know that I'm the dumb one. Right? I don't think so. So it's hard, but we could talk about this forever, right? At some point we have to wrap it up,
right.
But sheesh, it's a lot.
It's gonna be okay. It's just getting through this, and remember that the power that we have as a collective, as people, that's the secret, really, is that it's like, what's that movie with, I think it's the ants movie, where like the ants figure out like we're stronger than the grasshopper. Like, if we all just get together, like there's no reason why they should be in charge. Like, there's power in the collective.
There is. And I think that's what this 20-year cycle is going to show us, the power of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
All right, everyone. Well, we hope that this helped you feel not so alone, and that, we're all kind of collectively going through it at this point. And at this point, that means it's time to say goodbye. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share on your stories, subscribe, leave us a comment if you're watching on YouTube or listening on YouTube. This will help our podcast grow. And if we grow, that means the ability to do this work does too.
So thank you for hanging out with us today. We will be back in February.
Yes.
Stay mystical, magical, and definitely don't let anybody tell you what to do.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.